off in the middle of the second piano sonata.
It's a sin.
It is a sin. In fact, I've been giving that some thought, and I'm looking forward today to hearing...
I think I'm going to ditch this series.
Oh, no, don't do that. We still have 30 programs to go, more or less. Or at least 30 sonatas. We'll have to see how many programs
I
each one
think
takes.
I'm going to have the whole sonata performed at the beginning and then go into the movements. That might be a better idea.
That is a possibility.
I'm not satisfied with the idea of breaking these sonatas. However, I am enjoying listening to the movements, and today we'll hear the third and fourth movement of Opus 2 number 2, and then complete performance. Tomorrow we'll begin on Opus 2 number 3, the third in this spectacular set of sonatas written in 1796, or published at least then, and the third sonata is even larger in scale than number 2, which is quite a big piece. Beethoven was 26 years old, but don't think, Matt, that Opus 2 meant that he just got started. He had composed well over 150, 200 works before he would permit Opus 1 to be called that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
the
know there
piano
were some
trios.
earlier sonatas that you call juvenilia, which are recorded, as a matter of
Yes,
fact.
right. Everything of Beethoven's is recorded today. And another misconception, the fantastic prestige of Beethoven's great music has given many people, I'm afraid, the impression that every piece of music he wrote is significant. My goodness, it's not. He wrote
the sonatas,
many a slender and poverty-stricken work of art. And the juvenilia sonatas, they're of interest, of course, in seeing how Beethoven composed as a prodigy. He was a prodigy, you know, not of the Mozart scale, although his father, in desperation, even made him 2 years younger because he wanted the same glory for little Ludwig and made him practice like a scoundrel, just constantly work.
Well, his father was his first teacher, actually. Did his father also teach in composition?
No, although he studied with a man, Neffe, who was an organist. And this is where he got the first seeds of composition. This man was very astute and put him on Bach's Well-Tempered, and Beethoven played these pieces by the age of 12, almost all of them, and all his life played through these works. Although Bach does not make a great impact on his own work, when he became more and more interested in counterpoint, writing fugues in his later works, he would copy out Bach passages. But Bach himself was not a force in his compositional armament, that's for sure, because Beethoven used counterpoint in another sense, as an expressive element, not as necessarily the all-over structure that Bach used it as.
It's said that his father became a bit of an alcoholic later on in life. Did Beethoven actually support his father?
Beethoven, I don't know, but that Beethoven did help a great deal in family affairs. His mother, who he dearly loved, died at the age when he was 17, and she died of consumption. Now, his grandmother had a alcoholic problem, and she was fairly early in life put in an institution. Some say it was a malady of the nervous system that she had, and the alcohol.
I'm just wondering whether in his early years he was pushed as a prodigy, not so much for the prestige as for the money, although that's very hard to determine motives.
For both, but definitely for the money. It was a poor family. Yeah. Let's get on to the charming scherzo, and you have up the pianist Riefling. Do you know much about Riefling, Robert Riefling?
Not at all. In fact, there's nothing. I checked all the albums. There's no biographical data at all. It's a pity.
Isn't he Norwegian?
I do not know.
Let's hear Riefling in the scherzo movement of Opus 2 number 2. Robert Riefling in the Scherzo movement from the A Major Sonata, Opus 2, number 2. Let's now hear Daniel Barenboim. It will be very different. Daniel Barenboim in the Scherzo.
That sounded like a very happy section, the Scherzo, at least with the way Riefling did it. This sounded too heavy-handed to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem to me that's what it should be. But then again, I don't... Well, of course, I've heard the sonata in its entirety. You know, we're playing with the stack deck here. We know what it's supposed to sound like, or what we think it should sound like.
Do we have another performance?
Mm-hmm. Arthur Schnabel.
That was Artur Schnabel showing how very great he indeed is. The last movement is absolutely a charmer. I mean, just the opening phrase just sends me soaring. And let's hear a row. Oh, what sunshine in that movement. The rondo and marked perfectly grazioso, Beethoven's last movement to Opus 2, number 2 in A major. Let's get on with another performance by the great Wilhelm Kempff. Kempf in a performance of the last movement, the rondo of the A major sonata, opus 2, number 2. Oh, my voice.
And we'll be back with David Dubal in just a few moments.
Composer Jean Sibelius translated it, that is, the Kalevala, which is a famous Finnish folk legend, into the international language of music. In all Sibelius's work, the forests, lakes, and peoples of Finland act out the legends of their life and country. Because of this, a trip to Finland can provide you with both musical and cultural enrichment. May I suggest Finnair's tour, Finland and Beyond? It lets you see it all. It takes you to cosmopolitan Helsinki, of course, but it also takes you to Turku, which is the former capital of Finland. And it shows you what the neighbors are like on both sides, first in Stockholm, then on a visa-free cruise to Leningrad. If you want to thoroughly understand the Finnish character, there's no better way to do it. The price is not beyond your means, and the Finland National Tourist Office can give you much interesting information about Finland. Or write to me, David Dubal, to West 45th Street, that's WNCN, New York 10036. Ask for Finnair's Finland and Beyond.
Have you ever wondered why certain...
And now, once again, David Dubal. I've been meaning to ask you about this trend-setting aspect of Beethoven, the fact that he really changed the course of music. What sort of man really was he that he would take such chances musically?
I don't think he thought of himself as taking chances musically necessarily. I just think he was a ultimate genius who worked very hard and definitely had every reason to work very hard. But I'd like to talk about this human being at this moment who was probably more difficult to get along with than you. And I'm going to read a little from Daniel Gregory Mason. Beethoven had on his desk at all times these sentences. I am that which is. I am all that is, that was, and that shall be. No mortal man has lifted my veil. He is alone by himself, and to him alone do all things owe their being. Combined with the mental originality, the habit of deciding all questions for himself, and as if they had never before received solutions, which made Beethoven so pronounced a nonconformist in all matters from his toilet to his religion, was a physical say it for me, I can't do it.
Peculiarity.
Thank you, Mike. I'm having a hard day. That underlay much of what was grotesque about him. This was the nervous irritability inherited from his grandmother. His moodiness, his sudden alternations of depressed and excited states, his bursts of uncontrollable anger, his wild pranks and practical jokes were almost beyond doubt the result of an unstable nervous system. So restless was he that he was continually changing his lodgings. Once it was because there was not enough sun. Again, because he disliked the water. Another time he hated the landlord. In the later part of his life, when his habits were well known, he had difficulty in finding rooms anywhere in Vienna. The word was out. He put little restraint upon his tongue. Schindler says that the propriety of repressing offensive remarks was a thing that never entered his thoughts. After hearing a concerto of Ferdinand Ries, he wrote a furious letter to a musical paper enjoining Ries no longer to call himself his pupil. He was so impatient that he often took the medicines intended for an entire day in 2 doses, so absent-minded that he often forgot them altogether. A badly cooked stew he would throw at the waiter. Eggs that were not fresh at the cook. To a lady who had asked for a lock of his hair, he sent, at the suggestion of a friend, a lock cut from a goat's beard. And when the joke was discovered, he apologized to the lady, but cut off all intercourse with her. An English observer wrote that one unlucky question, one ill-judged piece of advice was sufficient to estrange him from you forever. So you see, he's almost as difficult as you are, Matt. Anyway,
I can see that. But he wrote beautiful music. I don't have that on my...
You know, the word beautiful is not the proper word for Beethoven's music.
Well, you were saying that you thought he was the greatest composer of all time. You were saying this while we were listening to that previous recording.
Well, I think he is, yes. And you know how I changed my mind.
That's true, but you did say that if you were to be on a desert island, you would take Bach.
Bach, I would take Bach, yes.
And yet, Beethoven is the greatest. Why wouldn't you take him?
I don't know, but I do know that inside me says that if I were at that desert island, I would need Bach for my friend. The intricacies, the figuring it out. Of course, that desert island has to have a piano.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps a phonograph. I would possibly take, for a moment of ecstasy, some Scriabin. But he's a very dangerous composer for my psyche. I would like to hear a performance by, and it's your choice, Wilhelm Bachhaus in the entire Opus 2, number 2. Bauhaus was lovely. In the Sonata Opus 2, number 2 in A major, the second of Beethoven's 32 sonatas.
And if I may use a musical term that hangs together rather well, much better than hearing the movements individually.
Well, I have to read this now. And on our program tomorrow, we will listen to the most famous of the Opus 2 series, the Opus 2 number 3 in C major, 4-movement sonata in the grand style. And in the evenings, 9:05 to 10, we have the comparative performances of piano music by Johannes Brahms.
You've been listening to a musical offering with WNCN's music and program director, David Dubal.